Batman the Killing Joke is directed by Sam Liu, and this is the newest DC animated film, and it stars Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy, Tara Strong, amongst others, and is an adaptation, of course, of one of the most famous graphic novels ever written, actually. And this was written by Alan Moore, who also wrote Watchmen, so very iconic writer for this movie. This movie is about the Joker, first and foremost. The Joker has broken out of Arkham Asylum and he is on the loose, and Batman is trying to look for him and take him back into custody. However, at this point in time, you're also getting to know a lot about the Joker's backstory, how he was created, where did he come from, did he have family, his personal life. You are getting to know Joker up and close, and it's very interesting because none of this had been done before in comic form. But this is the first comic where they actually show you and how twisted his origin was. I'm going to start with the pros of this film. There are some cons. As a film, it's alright. It's unfortunately not the greatest Batman movie or the greatest Batman animated movie, but it does have a lot of pros, which I'm going to get into right now. For starters, I think the animation after the first 30 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about those first 30 minutes in great detail in a bit, gets really, really good. The animation in this movie is actually really, really nice because it has been a point of contention for a lot of people. A lot of people have complained that it looks a little too off, it doesn't exactly look really good, and it feels very drab. And actually, I get why they use this animation style. It's a lot like the comic panels, which is great. That's actually a very interesting way of paying homage to the actual source material. Also, the voice acting in this movie is absolute perfection. Mark Hamill steals this movie as the Joker. He has been the Joker for as long as I can remember in cartoon form, and he is honestly the ideal Joker. But why is he the ideal Joker? In this movie, they show you exactly why. When you look into the character of the Joker, you get to know about certain ideologies of his. You get to know how he functions. He is a psychopath, but he's also a genius. In this movie, they try to show you how those two things, they just come together and they form this character. In the movies, in the live action films at least, they show you these elements, but they show you these elements with a few little twists of their own. In The Dark Knight, they try and show you this, but in that movie, Heath Ledger at the end, even though he was psychopathic and he was a genius in carrying out these meticulous plans, you have to admit that he was calm and concentrated throughout the entire thing. He knew exactly how things were gonna go. You never saw him break a sweat even once during an entire scene. In this movie, the Joker is not only psychopathic, and he's not only a genius, but he's just plain crazy. They build on that. They show that about the character. They show you why he's lost his mind. You see why he is what he is. And that's where the perfect Joker comes in. It manages to bring in the psychopathic bit, and as well as bring in the genius bit, and add in a little bit of crazy to make the perfect blend of character that Joker is. And Mark Hamill embodies that beautifully. Now let's talk about Kevin Conroy as Batman. As long as I can remember, Kevin Conroy has been Batman in the cartoons, and he is great as Batman here. While Batman is not the centerpiece of this film, he still does an amazing job. The character is done extremely well. You get to see these little complex things about the character that you've not really seen before, certain things in him that just don't seem right, that don't feel right to him. He's realizing that he is a lot like the Joker, and they all function in the same way. And this starts to get into his mind, and he starts to realize how similar the two are. And this is where we start to see it affecting him. It starts to affect his decisions. It starts to affect his judgment when it comes to the character of the Joker, which was absolutely riveting stuff, and I loved that about this character of Batman. Also, the musical choices were really good. The score for this movie was actually rather amazing, and they did a very good job of setting up scenes and how they transition from one scene to another, and which brings me to another thing, the editing in this movie. This editing is actually really, really good. It's a well-edited film, and some of the sound editing and mixing is pitch perfect. It's almost on par with big Hollywood movies. And finally, the script for the Killing Joke segment is fantastic. It is exactly what I wanted it to be. It was absolutely brilliant. Which brings me to the cons. The Killing Joke aspect of this film takes about 35 minutes to get going. Before that, you have to sit through about 25 minutes of a backstory revolving around Barbara Gordon. And this is a controversial subject for those who have seen the movie so far at San Diego Comic-Con, and some scenes have leaked online on the internet as well. And here's where the problem is. The first 25 minutes of this movie highlight Barbara Gordon as the strong female hero. I use these because she is portrayed as nothing but weak. The entire time during these 25 minutes, she's either riding someone else's coattails or doing exactly what everyone else is telling her to do. She knows something is wrong, but she'll do it anyway. Also, this movie's plotline is completely out of context. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Killing Joke storyline. They don't try and connect it in any way, and it doesn't feel as compelling. And honestly, even if it was connected, the first 25 minutes of this movie, aside from the fact that there are some controversial elements, which I'm about to get to in a second, it's just boring. I never had any engagement to any of the characters at that time. Batman was dull at this time, Batgirl was absolutely terrible, and either of the villains, there were some villains who I don't even remember that well because they were so one-dimensional. They were just there, and they were not exciting at all. Now let's talk about the controversial segment. Batman and Batgirl are like a father-daughter thing. Batman takes care of her as if she's his own daughter. And the bond between them is really heartfelt at times, especially if you read the comics. Yes, they do hint several times at the fact that Barbara has feelings for Batman, but this is very early on in their knowing each other. Eventually, they move on, they become just colleagues and partners in crime, but they never ever develop a sort of relationship. In this movie, they really hint at that relationship. And they even go so far as to having easily the most forced sex scene of all time. That's right. Batman and Batgirl have sex on a rooftop. And that right there is one of the major controversies. In fact, that is the biggest controversy that has come out of this entire film thus far. They have sex on a rooftop. And it's just weird, actually. It doesn't fit with the film at all. It doesn't fit with their characters. It's completely out of context, and it makes absolutely no sense. You can tell they were forcing it in since the beginning. In the entire time this Batgirl storyline is going on, they keep focusing on the fact that, oh, she's with this guy. She's not really dating this guy, but she's not really having sex with him either. I wonder if she's gonna have sex with him, so you know it's gonna come. They milked this thing for 25 minutes, and it's absolutely terrible. And the dialogue during the scene, the animation during this scene, it feels like this was a last-minute segment, that they just forced this in at the last minute to make a Batgirl storyline, to do those feminists proud who've hated the graphic novel ever since it came out. And speaking of the feminists, Barbara Gordon was just a tool. She was just there to be used as a torture tool for Commissioner Gordon and for Joker to use her in order to taunt the Commissioner. She's incredibly weak in these 25 minutes. If I did not just already highlight that with the way she just follows everyone around and does everything, she is really, really weak. She's every other moment. She is doing something wrong and she has to be saved by a guy. That is not how you portray a good female hero. That is just portraying someone who's just a damsel in distress all the time. And it's very jarring, and it makes for a very stupid experience, actually. The first 25 minutes of this movie are absolutely disastrous. They were a complete letdown, and they made me fearful for the rest of the film, but thankfully, after that, the actual plot of the film kicked in, and everything became better. But those first 25 minutes, everything with those first 25 minutes, just plain sucked. Guys, in the end, Batman the Killing Joke is unfortunately not the greatest Batman animated film ever made. That honor still goes to films like Mask of the Phantasm and The Dark Knight Returns. But it is still a good film only after it hits the 30-minute mark, when it starts to build up. I like the animation after the first 30 minutes. I like the performances after the first 30 minutes. Mark Hamill steals this movie. He's gonna get 2 points right from me before I give the final score of this film. Kevin Conroy is great. The script is fantastic. Everything is great from those 30 minutes onwards. I'm gonna give Batman the Killing Joke a 7 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This was another DC review. A lot of these have been there in the last 3 days. I'll be having more reviews very soon. I'm gonna restart the Harry Potter series because that's been on hold for a while now. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. If you like this, please subscribe and I'm here to see more, and I will see you later.